Actually, next speech is also about integrating Zabbix into your IT ecosystem, this time from A to Z, integrating it with different solutions, configuration management databases, or for example, creating and integrating fancy dashboards into Zabbix. Our next speaker is going to tell you how you can do that. Eric Doan from Axel IT, he's CDO there, all the way from France. And let's welcome him, let's welcome Eric, and let's talk about integrating Zabbix from A to Z.
Ok, c'est parti, troisième. Hello, welcome everyone to the Zabbix Summit speech. We'll be talking about how to integrate Zabbix within your IT ecosystem. My name is Eric, I'm CTO for Axel IT. Axel IT, we're a French Zabbix Premium partner. We have worked with Zabbix for the last 10 years. And what we'll be talking about today is business issues. And sometimes to solve the business issues, you are required to get outside of the system you're working with, which when we talk about Zabbix is monitoring data. And you want to either get monitoring data from some specialized system within Zabbix, or sometimes you are required to send monitoring data from Zabbix to another system, and usually that would be either a log management system or that would be help desk system. So this is what we are going mostly to talk about today. So I won't get too much into the details to stay with generic information. When we're talking monitoring at the start of the day, something is not working as expected. It should went with your boss asking you to fix that very quickly because we are losing the business, is losing money, right? The natural reaction to do and natural thing to do when this happens is hoping it's actually the network. So the network actually can be managed by Zabbix for almost always. You can use the SNMP protocol to do that and manage your network equipments, where you will get data from interfaces such as bandwidth, errors, buffers, hardware equipment such as CPU or power supplies. And you can also receive event or so-called SNMP traps, which are actual notifications coming from the equipment. And we wanted to go further than that and actually give information to the inside of what's happening within the network, who's doing what. And for that, we need to get higher to the network information flow, which today you should have as offered by your next generation firewall. So you can see some screenshots of what a firewall interface will look like. You get tables or charts of data with such and such protocol uses such and such bandwidth, of course. But there are a couple of issues when you start to want to get that network flow data to your Zabbix system, is that firewall aren't really friendly to the monitoring system. They are mostly used to, let's say, send their data to log management system where you can get the charts and not to monitoring systems. Plus, there's not actually a firewall at every network site or at every network port. So that information would be located only on the one side or on the boundary between the one side and the LAN side of your network. So back in the days, and that was before Zabbix 2.0, I think Andrew Nelson, which gave a couple of speech here in the previous Zabbix summits, made a quick evolution for the Zabbix agent, which was using the lib pickup to actually make a packet capture, sort through the data that was obtained and identify network flows through packet filters and then send that data to Zabbix. That was bound to the agent interface and IP, and you needed to both define the items you would like to get and all capture filters for the pickup data. We wanted to do that a little later, but at scale, meaning having gigabytes or 10 of gigabytes of data fed into Zabbix. So we turned to our partner H5 Network. H5, they will be giving a speech later this afternoon, so be sure to check on them if it is of interest to you. We made a quick POC system that actually leverage the SOAP API from H5, use a Zabbix sender to get that to a template consisting of Zabbix Trapper items. And then we can get more than 70 metrics from collecting network flows to Zabbix, where, well, those items will have their own life. It's still a POC system. It's not scalable. It will give you issues when you start thinking about high availabilities, mostly because it's not built for production. So when we had to build that for production, we turned to H5 and let them have a chat with Zabbix, and they came up with an integration that was released last year, which is based on the same principle, but it's cuts off the man in the middle. Every part of the API is done on the Zabbix, on the H5 engine, and it's also hosting the part where it notifies the Zabbix system. So actually pushing data and metric data to Zabbix it's rather easy. There are many ways to do this. This is only a way, but it worked pretty well because last year when we added the ability to monitor VPC and Amazon flow logs, we could send that down the chain of data and it ended within Zabbix without any modifications to make. So it will follow the Zabbix topology and versioning and such. And cutting the man in the middle, it gives you more resiliency. It's better designed to do that when you can, but you have to involve both companies to make that. Of course, you can do it yourself. So back to our daily maintenance, to daily routine in monitoring. One of the things when you are required by your boss to fix something is to find what actually did get done. So of course, you would turn to Zabbix to find that information. Zabbix would help you to identify the root cause of the issue, and then you can fix the problem. But when we talk about fixing the problem, well, people working at the operations, they basically have a choice to spend a lot of time to definitely fix a problem or to make a quick fix. And most of the time we're working for efficiency. And so we can have lingering issues in our systems when we don't take the time to have an approach that permanently fixes a problem. And this is because we have a lot to do. And so we have a lot of running issues. So should we fix the email before the internet or in the reverse order? Should I ask my database team to work on that issue first? And should I wait for them to give me some feedback? Or should I just spend the 5 minutes to make sure it works for my customer so he's satisfied? And then at some point in the future, I can fix the problem for good. So we have framework in the IT services management industry, and I'm sure you know them, of course. There are many. One of them is ITIL, IT Information Library. It gives us best practices to manage server support, and starting from ITIL version 3, to manage all of what is called the service lifecycle. And at the heart of the service lifecycle, there's a component that's called the CMDB, Configuration Management Database. And that CMDB will help us build and manage the lifecycle of services through processes, through best practices. So we work with iTOP from Komodo. iTOP is an open source ITSM software, which is one of the few open source software to have indeed a fully configurable CMDB. And when we asked about how we can integrate and push data from Zabbix to that CMDB, well, that's when the problem starts. So at the core of the CMDB, you have the function of impact analysis. And impact analysis relies on dependency mapping. We make relations between items. Those items are actually CI or configuration items. They may represent a switch, a software instance, a database, people's processes, or services. And we can use that impact analysis starting from, for example, a planned change. I want to reboot or stop or upgrade a switch. And using that, I can, from the planned change, find every other asset within the information system that will be impacted if that switch goes down. And this constitutes at the end of the service chain which services, which business services or application services are impacted and will be down when I upgrade my switch. So going into the reverse way, when we know that the service is down, we can track back and run reverse to that dependency chain, and find which CI, which configuration item actually made the servers go down, which help us locate where we should work on what we should work to fix the issue. So the thing we want is to have every time Zabbix monitoring detects that something is not working as expected, we want to map that within the CMDB to the correct CI, and we want to find the associated services that are impacted so that we may lower or so that we may raise the severity of the problem. If everything is done, it's going to be a disaster. While if the switch goes down but nothing is impacted, well, that's going to be a minor issue. So basic requirements we get asked by customer are for one-way integration. And one-way integration is pretty basic. Is when you have a problem that directly you want to open a help desk ticket with just matching names on each part. Even that part, it's pretty straightforward to do. But as soon as you want to have a synchronized integration, meaning when that problem gets resolved by some action in Zabbix detect that, you want to close the incident ticket on the other side, or when on the other side the incident ticket is closed, well, you want to acknowledge and close the problem with Zabbix. And that requires a little more thought. And then, starting from that, you can have two-way full integration, which will allow a couple of other features which we found were neat and cool. For example, we can have journal entries between both systems synchronized, so that when I update a problem, I get the update within the incident and vice versa. But also leveraging that impact analysis to actually change the way triggers are used within Zabbix, and also we'll see that later to add change management to Zabbix. So how do we integrate? Very straightforward to an external system. Well, basic answer is to use email. Please don't do that. It's a bad practice. You don't want to be dependent on the email server or on all the infrastructure that's required to get the email to the help desk system. Plus, at some point, well, you're going to have a major issue sometime, and you can generate hundreds or thousands of email, and your mail reader from the ITSM, from the help desk system, well, chances are it won't be able to live up to that amount of issues to create. So you will have issues doing email integration. So we want it to be connected and use a connected media. So we choose to use Action Encrypt, and so we made a couple of PHP files to create, to update, to delete from each side of the notification, where we are still using action rules, but we are not using notification media. We're using scripts, and our scripts allow us to add our own logic. And what this thing is, among that logic, we can get the incident ID that was opened back on the help desk side back to the Zabbix system. Of course, when we started to do that, it was still under Zabbix 4, and So right now, starting for, I think that's 4.4, but definitely 5. You do have webhooks, and webhooks are, well, the way to go. They are out of the box. You still are able to add your own logic, control logic, or escalation logic within the webhook. And it will also allow you to have logs of what's happening and easily consumable logs of what's happening. Only it will be JavaScript rather than, well, any language you would prefer to use a script for. And the real asset today of webhooks is even for the out-of-the-boxes one or webhooks, they are able to update tags on the fly. Well, they do that with some limitation, and we'll get deeper into that a little later. But you are able to, for example, open an incident, get the incident ID back, and put that as a tag in the event that was just generated. But if you want to do that, well, you lose, in some way, you lose the context of the user that was logged at the moment, and you should only use service user and integration user. And the way this is called is it still builds on action rules, of course, but it relies on the notification system, so you could notify multiple systems, such as communication systems, such as Slack or Teams. At the same time, you would open an incident and then pass the data everywhere. So it's pretty good right now. So the way we do that was using action scripts. So when Zabbix detects an event, we launch the scripts to push every data to the iTOP ITSM system. We then check if the event mode, the trigger definition mode, is single or multiple, and add some logic to manage that. And we're going to find the correct CI that corresponds the most to the host Zabbix sent the problem for. At that point, if the trigger had a specific service tag that was designed, we use back that service tag to map the incident directly to the service, find, once it's created, the ticket information, and we choose to put that in the trigger URL definition, which gets logged as a comments in the event, and which will allow you from the dashboard to be one click away from the incident. So I see a new event in the dashboard. I have a link to the ITSM helpdesk system that just created the incident. I click on that, and I'm within the helpdesk system, which is pretty cool. And then when we've done that, we want to run an impact analysis from the host, the CI associated to the host in the CMDB, find the most critical service that is impacted, and track back that data to the Zabbix event. For example, if it was very critical, we're going to raise the severity. If it's not critical, or if there's no service which is impacted, we're going to lower the severity dynamically. And so that's for opening incident. So then we have to manage updates of incidents. So the way to update is every time there's a change in Zabbix, we are going to push that into iTOP as someone acknowledge, or there's new automatic actions which have comments. We're going to add that to the incident ticket, as you can see. And also every time a journal entry is logged within the incident ticket, we want to have that information back to Zabbix so that we have the same level of information. Either I'm using the monitoring system, either I'm using the ITSM pod, but I won't have different information in each of the systems, so I don't have to navigate between them to find the correct information. So that's very, very important. And of course, that lifecycle information, it means that when something is changed, we update on the other side. It goes as well with the lifecycle status of the problem or of the incident. When I close manually or automatically the problem in Zabbix, I will mark the incident as solved by monitoring. And if it's solved manually on the helpdesk side, I will manually close the problem on the Zabbix side. So I almost always have at the same time the same status between problem and incident. And so to do that, it becomes quickly complex because problems are not actually something that's easy under Zabbix. So I'll give you a quick run on that. So you have a data model, and within that data model, you have templates. Templates hold items. Items gives values and metrics. Those metrics are checked with triggers. And actually, triggers is just a state change on an item that's monitored, what is called a trigger. When a trigger changes state, actually an event is generated, and that event is what we call a problem. So it's going to be difficult to map that logic to anything else because it's very particular and specific to Zabbix. We don't find that anywhere in other systems. But as well, in the CMDB, well, we've got the concept of host, for example. So this is a simplified data model from the CMDB. And we find that what Zabbix calls a host, which could be a network server, which could be a switch, a printer, a laptop, anything actually, well, it's going to be multiple things as well in the CMDB. So we have the same complexity on the other side. And when we start looking at items, we see the same thing. An item under Zabbix could be an application, a middleware instance, a database instance, and such. And it's also going to be different things within the CMDB. So one item, maybe multiple things. So the way we did that, we wanted the integration to be kind of universal, and we devised on setting a new class, which we call Zabbix host, which models what is a host within Zabbix. And to that, we will attach monitoring information, configuration information, such as host groups and templates groups. And so when we have Zabbix host represented within the CMDB, we can link them to the actual CI, such as hardware, software, services, business processes, applications, and such, that are also modeled within the CMDB. And having that configuration data within Zabbix, it will allow us to do some cool things, which is I can create a Zabbix host from the CMDB, or I can populate my CMDB from the Zabbix host. And once I have a Zabbix host, I will also be able to attach templates and to sort them within host groups, or to get the host groups which are defined within Zabbix and find them in my CMDB. And it will allow me to run some requests, for example, which are the hosts that are run under Linux OS and are in such and such data center and don't have that monitoring template assigned. Or to pre-create hosts and to say, I'm going to put into production 10 servers. And you know that in that case, well, monitoring teams, they are the last to know, kinda. So they get forwarding that, and the hosts are automatically populated from the CMDB to the Zabbix side. So it's very useful. And all that exchange of information is done through APIs, but for some parts, we need to maintain what we call a reconciliation ID, which allows us to actually do the mapping between a host under Zabbix and a Zabbix host within the CMDB, because, well, that's because we have two models, one where you would just manage servers and anything with IP address, which is very infrastructure-based, and one where you will manage anything, and your host under Zabbix could be used to manage applications such as web scenarios and such. And to finish our last use case, one of the things you might remember for the plan change diagram that I presented earlier is, well, in change management, once you have that deployed, basically anytime you would do anything on the infrastructure, you should log a change, and that should be reviewed, planned, approved, notably to make sure that your change is not going to collide with some other supplier or some other team also performing work at the same time. And so when the change request is approved under iTOP, what we do is automatically we build through the API again a maintenance order within Zabbix. So we know there's a change, and when the change is planned to be actually implemented, the everything related to monitoring will be under maintenance, so we don't get alarms that would be noise because we know the system is not working because we are performing maintenance work on that. To finish with, limits right now under Zabbix. So as you can see below, we have item, triggers, and items are tied to applications, but that's mostly for web scenarios. And services are also tied to triggers, but they track the state change of triggers, which you can find under monitoring IT services. So we don't have strict, or we don't have any relation between application or services and actual events. So we could use tags. Tags, they are defined at the trigger level. They can be inherited through macros, hosts, calculated, and such. But at the time the triggers changes state, the tags from the trigger will be passed to the event. So you can do that. You can calculate them beforehand. If we need to have the event to create an incident ticket, that at that time the event is created and we can change tag afterwards. Actually, we're not allowed to do that right now, as of now, through the API. There's one exception to that, and it is webhooks. So there's some dark magic involved there, and you could go check at the code, the source code for that. But webhooks, within the context of an event, are authorized to alter and change event tags. It's currently the only way to do that. What we can do through the API today is to change the severity, to acknowledge, or to add comments, but we do not have the possibility to manipulate tags and to associate an event with a service or anything at runtime. So the last thing you might want to check is license issues. It will be very quick. Zabbix, for example, everybody knows we are running under GPL version 2. iTOP is open source as well. It's running a favorite GPL license. And only it's not a full open source model, it's an open core model, meaning you have a community edition, which is full, and then you have added features, which are sold as extensions. Some are free, some require maintenance or prerequisites. And we choose to release that under AGPL. Actually, we split the integration in two. Every Zabbix port will be GPL version 2 and distributed as such. And every part under iTOP, changing the CMDB model and such, will be released under the iTOP open core model, which is after GPL. And of course, there are commercial issues when you are talking about commercial software, such as H5 audits or ServiceNow, which we've seen earlier. So I hope you learned a couple of things. It can be pretty straightforward to think about integration of events to external systems, but once you will open the Pandora box and start looking at a deeper and tighter integration between the systems, and mostly two-way integrations, then things won't be so trivial at all. So we wanted to share with you our experience on that today. You should really have a project team holding both competencies and skills on the Zabbix, the CMDB, and the help desk system, and you have to wrap it all in a very nice Azure and functional level. So it's going to be a very functional project. The technical part is not that hard, but it's not going to change once you've perform your functional analysis and your changes to the data model that will engage you for a couple of versions. So I hope you learned a couple of things. I did not go into much detail. There's a lot more to ITIL, of course, and CMDBs and such. We can talk hours about that. If you would like to know more, well, we still have time for questions, or you could also check by your booth, which will be virtual this year. It's a Zoom room, and you're welcome to come when you have the time. Or well, thank you for listening, and I'm waiting for questions.
And let's answer some questions. I hope you are ready. We did receive some. First off, which kind of CMDBs have you integrated?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So right now the speech was about the iTOP CMDB, but we have also worked with ServiceNow, EasyVista, and HP, which is the Micro Focus CMDB. There have been a couple of others, but this part of the speech, of course, was for iTOP, okay, with Zabbix.
So yeah, as you guys can see, you have quite a lot of experience, and maybe if people are interested in discussing this in a bit more detail, they can always find you, as you said, in your booth on Zoom, ask some questions, you can exchange experience, and so on. So quite useful that way. One more interesting question. So what is most memorable or unusual or complex two-way integration that you have implemented?
Oh yeah, actually we are, as I said, a systems integrator, which means I think we are very close to the people working with Zabbix day to day, which are network admins, sysadmins, and not so much developers. So for us, it was a real struggle to build a solution, which is somewhat an editor way of doing things, which we do not have the core skills and tools to do that. Of course, we can put up a couple 100 or 1,000 lines of code, but it gets experience and organization to do that. And that was most of the struggle part we did have, to be our own customer and to choose to do something without any limits, okay?
All right. Thank you. That will be all for now. Yeah. But like I said, people can always catch you in your Axel IT booth in Zoom. Yeah. And yeah, you'll be there. They're welcome. Feel free to discuss anything else regarding CMDBs, integrations, or any other questions that you may have. Axel IT booth on our landing page. You can find it there.